Hey everyone, I was just going through some of the old things I had in the garage, and I just noticed two old instructional guidebooks for standardized tests that were common in the 1990s, and those are the TAAS test, TAAS. This was the predecessor to the STAR test of this current educational period, and before the STAR test there was the TAAS test, and this is the one that came before the TAAS test. I do recall that 6th grade for me was the last year of the TAAS test, and then 7th grade was the TAAS test, and it continued on all throughout high school. And I never was part of the generation with the STAR test, but that is where it is now, the STAR test. And it's just interesting to notice how the standardized testing in the state of Texas has changed throughout the last 2 decades, and whereas once before the objectives that students are required to know as they advance up the grade levels have changed. Some of these objectives listed here: the student will demonstrate an understanding of number concepts. The student will demonstrate understanding of mathematical relations, functions, and other algebraic concepts. And it just seems like over time those objectives have, the ones that were the regular objectives before are now just precursor steps to the current objective students are required to learn. And it's not so much a comment on how the tests have gotten harder, but nor is it a comment on how easier the tests were in two decades ago, but more so the just evolution of education for the normal grade school student in the state of Texas. And it seems like nowadays the testing and the STAR test in particular is just going from 0 to SAT in hardly any time at all, and it's so rigorous and demanding for the students of today's generation. It just, seeing these old tests kind of brought back memories of how it was a different time during the TAAS test era. And let's look at an example question. This is the math. John's mother helps at the public library. She has to arrange the books on the shelf by their book numbers from least to greatest, which shows the book numbers in the correct order. This is a legitimate question from a standardized test in the 1990s, just putting in order. So very basic, very simple, hardly any extra steps required. Let's look at some more questions. What is 689.82 rounded to the nearest 10? Also very basic. What is the greatest common factor of 24 and 18? See, these steps were once before they were the actual questions. Nowadays these are the first foundational steps that the more rigorous questions of today's STAR test ask, and they expect you to know this now before you actually answer the question, because this is a primary step, and then you go on to the secondary steps and tertiary steps, and the questions are a little more complex. How is the product of 4 times 4 times 4 times 3 times 3 expressed in exponential notation? You have 4 3's here, 4 to the 3rd power, and 3 4's here, so that's 4 to the 3rd power, and then 2 3's here, so that's 3 to the 2nd power. Nothing much. Which expression shows 24 as a product of prime factors? They all should multiply out to be 24. Just got to pick the prime numbers. 8 is not prime, 6 is not prime, and these two are all prime numbers, but maybe one of them does not multiply out to 24, and that's the one that's not the answer. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24, but 2 times 2 times 4 is 12, 12 times 3 is 36, so D is not it, that's C. That's some of the questions that were required, and a lot of basic stuff compared to what is now in the STAR test. Let's go over look at some reading questions. See how it was back then in the 1990s. First question of this passage about facts about quicksand. The word impervious in this passage means it's very likely that today's students may just know this word off the top of their head, maybe from TV or hearing it in context, so you probably don't even have to look at the passage. But look at this. Allows water through, rich, lumpy, does not allow water through. Again, 4 answer choices. And I don't think they did the 5th answer choice where it says none of the above in this testing, the TAAS test. I don't think they did that type of question. So it was easier, 4 answer choices, and if you can eliminate A or D, that's already down to 3 answer choices. Because A and D are contradictory, so just being able to eliminate one leaves you only 3 to pick from. And in the passage, it says, where is it? Impervious. That have clay or other impervious soil that traps water under the sand. So it traps water under the sand. That does not allow water through. D. Other vocabulary words. The word demise in this passage means, again, people nowadays can just know that off the top of their head, maybe from context they've seen it TV or hearing other people say it or just hearing it aloud. And you can obviously go back to the passage and you'll probably explain it in the first sentence prior to the word or the sentence after the word what demise means. Another vocabulary word. And other type of questions, what is the main idea? I mean, that's a question in the 90s, but now maybe they want you to think deeper and the question will be more complex. People have been afraid of quicksand because... So again, you can just infer from what is written in the passage what the answer will be for this one. Which of these is an opinion expressed in the passage? What is an opinion from the passage? So the standards of education were obviously different in the 1990s, and this was just kind of a reflection on the past, what has changed so much in 2 decades. And it seemed like the education was easier then, and if you had good teaching and good practice and you did your best on studying, you could definitely succeed on these tests. Whereas nowadays it seems like the students and faculty members, the administration, they're all hounding about the exams, and it's kind of a point of contention and also a huge stress for students these days, whereas back then it was not.